Okay, we'll see how long this one goes. Did pretty good yesterday. Got two down and a short. Let's see if I can get at least one down. I don't know, because there's like two eagles there, so I don't know. I'm getting back in the right way either. Let's see. Some more about me. Well, let's do a little bit more about me. Hopefully you could hear all of them. Anyway, I told you about my dad's military. Now let me tell you a little about my mother. And my mother was an only child, and she was born and raised in the Bronx in New York City. She went to Ohio. This is how my parents met. She went to Ohio. There's a friend out there that she grew up with, I guess, that, she went to go visit after her graduation. She had just graduated from high school. Less than a month later, the marriage of my parents started. The first one. So, my mom was walking down the street. I think she was probably going downtown to go shopping or whatever, go get something from the store or something. And these hooligans pulled up beside her. And they were harassing her, It wasn't anything violent, it was just they kept trying to, I guess, touch her or whatever. Well, my dad pulls up and he sees this going on. So him and his friends, as far as I know, it was him and his friends, pulled over and stopped it right smack there in that middle of that street and stopped that mess. And they took my mom back to where she was staying. Well, somehow they got invited to the same wedding, and it might have been the friend that she was visiting. And they met again at a wedding. Well, 2 weeks later from that wedding, they ended up going to Indiana, where, to adjust the peace, and they got married. Mind you, one grandmother, which was the one that was my dad's mother, was not happy about it, called her every name in the book, and all that. They didn't get along at first. And then when my other grandmother, her mother, found out, she decided not to talk to her for 2 years. Well, despite that, their marriage went on. My great-grandma Matco settled down, made them get married in the church a month later, because they weren't married by the church and both of them were Catholic. So she made it to where they can get married. They could get married in the church. I think it was the church they were going to at the time. I think it was before St. Mel's. I think it was called St. Wenceslaus, something like that. Something Slovakish. Anyway, so they got married a month later, which is August 2nd, they got married. Mind you, they lived with my grandma Matco for like 6 years or so, and had 2 boys while they were living there. My grandmother, my mother, grew up in a very strict home. My grandfather, from what I hear, because I never met him, he died before I was born. He died like in the 50s, and I was born in the 60s. Anyway, she was raised up, she went to all Catholic girls' school, and was raised up very strictly. My grandfather was, it's not that he was a bad man, he just was alcoholic. And he wasn't very nice when he was drunk. You know, I can't go into detail, I can't judge him because I wasn't around, but he wasn't very nice. My grandmother had to work to make sure that there was a roof over all their heads, because he would take his weekly or bi-weekly money and go and spend it on alcohol. And when he didn't have the money and she did, he would do, he would make her give him the money. Let's just say that. So he did all kinds of different jobs. He worked for the TVA. He worked under the table, we might say, because mind you, during the 20s, and this was probably a job he had prior to meeting my grandmother, or marrying my grandmother, during Prohibition, he ran alcohol. So that gives you an idea of what he was brought up around. And he was brought up in Manhattan. And of course, it was down by where the 5 Points is. So we do have some family members that live by the 5 Points, somewhere on Broadway. Because the 5 Points didn't just, on the end of Manhattan, it went up towards Broadway. So they didn't live, I don't know if they lived on Broadway, but I know they lived near Broadway. And not the way you see Broadway now, because there's different sections of Broadway. There's a bad part of Broadway, and then there's the entertainment part of Broadway. So, and that's where he was born and raised, whereas my grandmother was born and raised in the Bronx. I don't know how those two met. I wish I did, but nobody's alive to tell me how they met. All I know is on September 9th, 1928, both of them were married. They got married. I have their wedding picture. I have a single picture of my grandmother in her bride, dressed up in her bride's stuff. I was told by my mother that she took that dress, like not even a week or so later, and dyed it black, which a lot of them did that. They wanted to have when during the Depression, because Depression started like 2 years after they got married. It might have been even 2 years after they got married that she did it, but they would take their nicer clothes and, dye them for a different thing. So she may have took her wedding dress and decided to make it into a funeral dress, or she knew that marriage was going to go the way it went. Because it wasn't a very good marriage. It wasn't a bad marriage, I guess, as far as they go, because it could have been worse. He could have really, really put her in the hospital, and he never did, but doesn't mean he was nice. And I don't judge him. So if he's listening in heaven, Grandpa, I'm not judging you. What happened happened. It's up to mother and grandmother to forgive you on that one. Whereas, I can't say yes or no, I totally against him, because I'm not. He's my grandfather. But there's a lot of stuff that my mother didn't say about my grandfather, and I often kind of want to know why, but I kind of don't want to know why, because I hope it's nothing bad. let's just say that. But she never hardly ever talked about him. All I knew was his name. I found out that he was born and raised in Manhattan because it's in the when I do my family research, which I'm trying to do her side more because nobody's done her side in our family, so I'm trying to do it a little bit about it where I can, get an idea about what's going on with, why my mother was the way she was. I mean, she wasn't a bad person. No, she wasn't. She told a lot of tales, and I don't know what was true and what was not. But then again, she went through a lot of trauma. I think she went through a lot more trauma than just, what my grandfather did to them. And I don't exactly know what he actually did to them. I know that he was not nice to them. And he ended up dying in New Jersey, probably right across the bridge from the Bronx, because he moved to the Bronx. He was actually raised a Protestant, which it's hard to tell because his mother was from Ireland. She was from County Tipperary, and I can't pronounce the name of the city, but it started with a T. It looked like it spelled out turtles, but it might have been turtles. I don't know. But I don't know if she was Protestant or if she was Catholic and changed to Protestantism. I know my grandfather was Protestant, and he changed his religion to Catholic to make my grandmother and their marriage, legal in the eyes of the church. I have nothing against people that are Protestant or anything, don't get me wrong, but I don't know what went on, what was that about, but it's hard to explain things about my family because there's a lot I don't know. I mean, there was rumors going around on my dad's side that, my great-grandfather had a title given to him. Maybe he did, but I haven't found proof. I know that he worked for a noble family because it says so. Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. I will catch you in the next video. Bye.